Right now, the National Weather Desk digging out in Buffalo, where the most snow fell and how the region is responding.
The way the lake effect is, you got to pick and choose when you go out. When it's bad, you stay home.
Also, an up-close look at the devastating impact of the drought on the Mississippi River.
Everything starts to back up farther and farther up the river.
And the weather Team USA can expect when they kick off their 2022 World Cup match today.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Veronica Johnson. It was a quiet weather weekend across the nation, unless you live in western New York, and that's this morning's big weather story. It's difficult to imagine 80 inches of snow. I mean, the typical door is about 80 inches high. The average NBA player only 79 inches tall. But 80 inches of snow is just how much snow had fallen now in Orchard Park, New York, a suburb just south of Buffalo. And yes, schools in Orchard Park are closed all week. It takes some time to dig out from that much snow, and because this was a wet and heavy snow, the question is, where do you put all that snow? Let's head to Buffalo, where reporter Polo Sandoval has more.
Just about everywhere you look, just south of Buffalo and really in the city, there are reminders that the cleanup efforts after this historic snowstorm, they are far from over. This is a residential neighborhood just south of Buffalo proper. Residents have been working all weekend to dig their way out of their homes, clearing their driveways. The city, the county, they're joining the efforts, making sure that the streets are clear as well. They're also taking some extraordinary steps to not just plow the snow, but also remove the snow. You see this lake effect, frozen precipitation. It's wet. It's very heavy. So according to one city official who I spoke to on Sunday, it's not the kind of snow that you could just sort of plow and leave it there. So they are taking these extraordinary steps by basically using equipment to remove the snow from these neighborhoods and then pile it up high, tons at a time. In some of the city facilities that they have, they say that certainly snow in Buffalo is not extraordinary, but the volume that they received for the last 3 days, it certainly is.
So here are some of those incredible numbers, and all these towns are not around Buffalo. Watertown and Natural Bridge are just north of Syracuse. They also had lake effect snow, but from Lake Ontario, not Lake Erie. Think about this. The peak snowfall, 6 inches an hour, and in Erie, 5 inches per hour. That's Jefferson County. Just absolutely incredible. Well, the snow wasn't nonstop from Friday on through the weekend. There was actually a break yesterday before it started picking up again late in the day. That break allowed some folks to get out to the grocery stores and to stock up.
I have a big list. We always cook for people that don't have, my girlfriend and I. So we invite friends over, and I don't know, I probably got everything I need. My buddy works at Tops up at Sheridan Drive. He's getting my turkey for me, and I'm getting everything else, all the fixings.
It's that time of year, and I need a big turkey to do my special brine and feed my family a delicious turkey.
Others encountered empty shelves and had to go to one more store. Buffalo residents were able to hit the streets because city officials lifted the driving ban Sunday afternoon so folks could get their provisions before another band of snow hit the area. And while parts of the country have seen sizable snowfall lately, drought continues across the upper Midwest. The lack of water there is having just a significant impact on the downstream flow of the Mississippi River. Meteorologist Nick Stewart is in Dubuque, Iowa, with more on how the low water is impacting the flow of goods and how it's impacting your wallet.
It's a quiet form of transportation, a significant mover of agricultural goods, and heavily impacted by the weather. Barge traffic on the mighty Mississippi has been facing challenges all autumn.
Given day, we'll typically unload 2 barges. We can load 2 as well.
Joe Bitter is the general manager at Logistics Park Dubuque. This major hub for imports and exports on the Mississippi River, serving Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, hasn't had to stop the movement of product, but day-to-day operations are being impacted by record low water downstream, especially south of St. Louis. The way the system works is a delicate dance of upstream traffic from as far south as New Orleans and downstream traffic from as far north as the Twin Cities.
What comes up the river for us is feed ingredients for animals and then the crop inputs, the fertilizer, the dry fertilizer that's used to grow the crops. So the barges are going downriver, taking out the products, and they're bringing up river the inputs that go into growing those products.
The Mississippi River typically moves about 500 million tons of cargo, valued at more than $100 billion. While the water levels locally are lower than normal, downstream, the river is virtually impassable.
Imagine it's like the interstate highway system and something blocks the interstate, only here we don't have off-ramps. Everything has to move through the river. So when there's a blockage, like we had with the groundings south of here, everything starts to back up farther and farther up the river.
You're also having to hold more exports until you have a barge available.
Well, there's only so many barges. They're generally taking products downstream, they're being emptied, then they're bringing products back upstream. When they can't complete that cycle, you start to get an imbalance. And when it's imbalanced, there's not enough barges. Basically, product has to sit, and that's what's happening now.
This pile will eventually be reclaimed to go down the river.
Keeping product and waiting for shipping prices to fall and availability to increase has its risk to farmers, as the market price in the coming months is unknown.
So this is a loaded barge. This has got beans going to New Orleans for export.
The other unknown remains the weather. If drought continues through the winter, there may not be a spring shipping season on the mighty Mississippi.
It's not that I haven't seen it, or Joe hasn't seen it, or our customers haven't seen it. No one's ever seen it this low. These are historic low water levels.
At the moment, I think the impacts have been manageable, relatively minimal. But if it continues, I think the impact is going to be great next spring and into 2023.
Today is the day. For the first time since 2014, the United States is competing in the FIFA World Cup. They take on Wales this afternoon in Qatar. The World Cup was moved from June and July to November and December because of the summer heat just being so brutal in Qatar. So what weather can Team USA expect today? The good news is it's not going to be too hot. In fact, the forecast for the game location is to be around 80 degrees today, then climbing into the mid-80s by the end of the week. In fact, their next match is Friday with a high temperature around 85 degrees. Go USA. Well, at the National Weather Desk, our joy is delving into weather phenomena and natural events. Several episodes ago, we talked about Southern California's Santa Ana winds. Did you know, though, Oregon experiences similar wind events? Let's go to Portland, Oregon, where meteorologist Rhonda Shelby explains.
This pattern forms when cold and dense air dives down from Canada into eastern Oregon, creating an extreme pressure difference between the two sides of the state, separated by the Cascade Mountain Range. It translates into strong east wind at sea level, flowing from high pressure to low pressure. Like the Santa Ana wind pattern, east wind accelerates as it flows over the mountain range and down into the western valleys. But when it encounters the narrowest part of the Columbia River Gorge, just east of the Portland metropolitan area, a sort of wind tunnel forms in the exposed hills, ridges, and communities along the Columbia River. The popular gorge tourist attraction, Vista House at Crown Point, is located right in the area where the wind reaches its peak.
I can't complain too much. It's a beautiful view.
Have you guys ever been in conditions like this?
Not that I can think of, no.
Our cameras ventured up to Crown Point before the hurricane force gusts began, peaking at 94 miles per hour. I'm Rhonda Shelby for the National Weather Desk.
This morning, the NASA Orion spacecraft was just 80 miles from the surface of the moon. It's the first powered lunar flyby on the Artemis mission. After approaching the surface, Orion went into a wider orbit around the moon. That mission, the next step in NASA's efforts to return humans to the moon. That's expected to happen in 2025. Well, a little snow in South Bend, Indiana here didn't stop football on Saturday. This was the scene at Saturday's Notre Dame Boston College game. Burst of heavy lake effect snow made the game one to remember. Fans had difficulty seeing the field at times. Imagine the players on the field having a hard time. Those wind chills, they hovered around 10 degrees for the entire game. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll talk with a survivalist about how to survive if you get stuck in your car during a winter storm. And have you ever heard of thunder snow? We'll tell you what it is after this short break.
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. It's a chilly start in the Northeast. We have a lot of sunshine, at least to start the day. At times, more clouds than sun today. The lake effect snow has come to an end for the most part. Temperatures today, they're going to struggle to get out of the 30s. Wind chills will be colder, so it's feeling more like winter here. As we head into the day on Tuesday, temps will get a boost back into the upper 30s and low 40s. The wind will start to drop off, and we're back in the 40s with a lot of sunshine on Wednesday. Enjoy.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. A cold start with 20s and 30s at 9 a.m. by about noontime. We're mainly in the 40s, some 30s north and up and down the 95 corridor. To finish the day, 30s and 40s. Could be a touch milder than we saw during the day on Sunday as our latest weather maker, fair weather high pressure, moves east. And that should start turning the winds a little more southerly eventually, which means warmer temperatures as we head towards Thanksgiving. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast highs for the day. A little bit cool up around Nashville and Tupelo, mid-50s. Raleigh, 54 degrees, 56 in Atlanta. You get south of Jacksonville, we see those 60s getting into the 70s. So you got to go to South Florida to enjoy those temperatures on the warmer side of things. A lot of rain, though. We'll continue to see showers across the area as we go through the day. Monday, looks like we'll continue to see a few spotty showers. Broken clouds over the southeast as there's some high pressure over Tennessee, but it looks like definitely cooler nights ahead.
To see the weather in cities across the country today, we start out in Buffalo, New York. Things have really settled down. Today, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, but some gusty winds near 40 miles an hour. The afternoon may reach 40 degrees, but it's still going to feel like temperatures are in the 30s. And let's stay in New York and head over to Albany, where they have partly cloudy skies and a high temperature getting up to near 40 degrees later today. A look further south now, Lynchburg, Virginia, sunshine and a high later today, 51 degrees. Sure is going to be a pretty day, not quite as cold, but later tonight those temperatures will dip down into the mid-20s. And then we'll end over to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where they have sunshine on tap, just a few high clouds, and a temperature later of 54 degrees with the next rain chance coming up Thursday mid-afternoon. Well, we see it with every major storm. Cars stuck on the side of the road, passengers stranded for hours, sometimes even days. Emily Gracie recently spoke to survival instructor Creek Stewart about how you can prepare your car now with supplies that you need for the next big storm.
There are three things that are at the top of the list. Number one is outdoor clothing to protect you from the elements. Most people do not have outdoor clothing in their vehicle during wintertime conditions, and it's a huge mistake. You want to have things in your car that you would wear if you were going skiing or hiking in the snow, like gloves and hat. You want to have multiple layers, including a waterproof exterior shell or a poncho. Because if you're out in the snow or out in cold weather and you get wet, you've taken a really bad situation and made it a whole lot worse. Number two is you need to have a cell phone car charger in your vehicle. Your cell phone these days are your link to rescue, and you've got to keep that phone charged. And number three, you want to make sure to have gas in your car. That's easy to overlook, but in wintertime conditions, you never want to let your tank run under half a tank full. That way, if you're stranded in the snow, you've got at least a half a tank of gas. And if you ration that, that can last for a very long time.
How do you ration that?
Well, you would intermittently turn your vehicle on and off just enough to stay comfortable inside. And if you do that over the course of a night or even a full day, the gas will last a really, really long time. It's different for every vehicle, but you definitely don't want to leave your car running continuously.
All right, let's say you're not prepared. You're stuck out on the road. You have some random stuff in your car, but you don't have the necessities. What can you modify with what might already be in your car?
One thing you could potentially do that could make a huge difference is almost all the heat loss from your vehicle happens through the windows, whether it's the front window or the side windows. So anything you can do to cover up those windows, whether you use some duct tape and tape a Mylar blanket over the window, or you could use extra clothing or even like a tote bag or something like that. In a worst case scenario, almost all vehicles underneath the carpet, especially in the trunk area, are lined with a 1/2 inch of foam insulation that's used as a sound barrier. And in a desperate situation, you could strip away that carpet, strip away that foam insulation, and use that to keep warm if you absolutely had to.
Craig told Emily the one thing most people forget when stranded in a storm is to clear the snow away from the exhaust pipe. It really is critical because if you don't, you're putting yourself at risk for carbon monoxide poisoning. If you want to see more tips from Craig, check out the longer interview on YouTube. Just search the National Weather Desk. And you've likely heard meteorologists issue warnings to be careful when navigating those icy roads. And more often than not, you've heard them say that bridges freeze before the roadways. But why is that? Kirksville, Missouri meteorologist Riley Fannin explains.
You probably hear them mention the fact that bridges and overpasses get icy earlier than your general roadways. So why does that happen? Why do bridges and overpasses become icy before other roadways? Well, it has to do with bridges' inability to trap heat, as well as there are more points of contact for that cold air on a bridge than there is a generic roadway. On a generic roadway, you have that one point of contact right over the top. But for a bridge and an overpass, you have multiple points of contact. You have cold air that goes over, you have cold air that goes under, and you have cold air that goes along the side of those bridges. That's why as that air temperature drops and the road temperatures begin cooling off, your blacktops and your main asphalt roadways will stay warmer than your bridges and your overpasses because there are that many more points of contact, allowing that colder air to have more of an impact on the bridge and overpass temperatures compared to, well, just your generic blacktop streets. So now you know why we always caution everybody to take it slow and steady as that cold air starts trickling in, especially, well, like I've been saying, if you're traveling over bridges or overpasses.
Have you ever heard of cool air wedging? It's actually a pretty common occurrence in parts of the country right now. To find out exactly what it is, let's go now to meteorologist Evan Chikvara in Birmingham, Alabama for the answer.
All right, today we're going to talk about a phenomenon that happens across parts of the southeast, especially in our transitional seasons. It's known as cool air wedging or cool air damming. It's something that if you've lived near the Appalachian Mountains or the southeastern United States, you may have heard happen before. Let's explain it to you. Really, it's cold air from the mountains, really in the higher elevations. It's usually pooled up there when it's forced to the south and west. A lot of times it coincides with a low pressure off the Atlantic coastline and perhaps a high in the middle of the country, and it brings unseasonably cool air for the southeast. We've already seen it at times here this fall, so let's show you how it happens. I want to set the scene. First, you've got your low pressure somewhere over, say, the Bahamas or off the Atlantic seaboard, so now you already have that northeasterly surface wind. And then, of course, you've got your surface high pressure in the middle of the country just to aid at that. The mountains, note here, they almost act as a dam or a barrier, so that cooler air, instead of going up and over the mountains into the Ohio Valley, is forced to move south through South Carolina, through Georgia, into parts of central Alabama. So what this will eventually do, especially as the surface low gets closer to the coast, is force that air all the way as far to the west as, say, Mississippi. You have some shallower mountains there in North Alabama, and this is what we call a cool air wedge or a cool air dam. And you'll get this quite frequently. It could be a nice source of cooler, refreshing air, oftentimes accompanied by cloud cover, because you also have that Atlantic Gulf Stream moisture that comes across. But that, essentially, is how it works.
And here on the National Weather Desk, we look to our team of 200 meteorologists across the country for their experience in weather. For example, take thunder snow. Many of you have likely heard that before, but meteorologist Christina Earn in Rhode Island just posted this explanation on her TikTok page.
Historic snowfall around the Great Lakes isn't the only thing getting people talking over the next couple days. It's also the light show in the sky, and that's from thunder snow.
Thunder snow has been spotted along with intense lake effect. You can see those flashes of lightning here showing up on this satellite loop. Thunder snow is rare since thunder and lightning requires warm surface temperatures and cold air in the upper levels. So this unusual sight is happening in New York because of the cold air moving over the warmer lake waters. Plus, strong vertical mixing with a big temperature gradient causes this.
We wanted to show you some drone video that Brandon Clement shot of the storm the evening that rolled into Buffalo, New York.
Good Monday to you. I'm meteorologist Phil Kelly. We will continue to see temperatures slowly moderate over the next few days. Boy, winter came quickly to much of the area, but we'll be back into the 50s, even seeing some 60s by the time we get into the middle of the week. Your travel day on Thursday. A lot of folks traveling for Thanksgiving. I don't see any issues really across the region. We do have a weak cold front that could bring some rain as we get to the East Coast by the time we get to Friday morning.
Happy Monday. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo with a look at your forecast across the region. Of the overcast, cold day across much of Texas. Temperatures only warming into the 40s. Overcast with some showers around across central and southeastern Texas. A lot of sunshine, though. Northwestern Texas, temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. A lot of sunshine around Oklahoma City, high in the mid 50s. Overnight tonight, a few showers maintaining themselves across South Texas. Otherwise, clear with temperatures dropping into the 30s and 40s.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the west. Very cold temperatures still in the inland northwest, where temperatures are staying well below normal, but we're starting to warm up right along the coastline and into California as well. High pressure is staying in place, and it's very strong, creating stagnant air advisories for the better part of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, even parts of California and Montana. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
This was the scene in Hamburg, New York this past weekend. The town is south of Buffalo. These photos were taken when even more snowfall was expected. Meanwhile, these clouds let the sun play, but meteorologists in Providence, Rhode Island say those beams aren't shining as warmly as they seem. After unseasonably high temperatures earlier this month, things plunged to the cooler side and are going to be there for a while.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
Now it's time to showcase some of the great content that we see from folks across the country who share their photos on Chime In. These seagulls are on a mission to consume all the breakfast they can. This photo captured along East Beach in Rhode Island. Oh, wow, that's pretty. This photographer caught a tufted titmouse mid-flight with a little mealworm in its beak if you look closely. And it looks like winter is settling into this spread and the sunrise over the Pryor Mountains in Montana. Gorgeous. We would love to share your weather content on air. All you have to do is find us on your favorite social media platforms, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. All you have to do is search National Weather Desk, and we'll be right back. Thanks so much for spending a small part of your morning with the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Veronica Johnson. Make it a great Monday. Be safe, stay warm, and keep an eye on the sky.